All right, and like a blink of an eye, the end of the NFL regular season is here. So we have a couple games to go over. We last left off at the Green Bay, Minnesota game. So our next game we got to go over is the Green Bay Packers traveling to the Baltimore Ravens. In this game, the Packers defeated the Ravens 31 to 30. At the end of the game, I believe the Packers were up 31 to 17, and then they allowed Baltimore to come back. It was 31 to 30, and then Baltimore tried for a 2-point conversion, and they failed to do that. There was very little time left, so the Packers ended up winning 31 to 30, and with that win, the Packers clinched the NFC North title. In this game, Aaron Rodgers tied Brett Favre's passing touchdown record for the franchise. I believe that was 441 passing touchdowns. Um, for his stats on that game, he threw the ball 31 times, completing 23 passes, had 268 yards, and threw for 3 touchdowns. Aaron Jones was the leading rusher for the Packers, had 13 carries and 58 yards, and A.J. Dillon carried the ball 7 times for 22 yards and had 1 touchdown. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or MVS, was the leading receiver. He had 5 receptions for 98 yards and a touchdown. And then, of course, Devonta Adams, he had 6 receptions, only had 44 yards, and had 1 touchdown. For Baltimore, Lamar Jackson was out due to an injury. So Tyler Huntley, the backup for Baltimore, started. He threw the ball 40 times, completing 28 passes, had 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was also their leading rusher with 13 carries for 73 yards and had 2 rush touchdowns. So 4 touchdowns for him total. The leading receiver for Baltimore was their star tight end Mark Andrews. He had 10 receptions for 136 yards and had 2 touchdowns. My notes for this game: the offense is the same as usual, efficient, good. It's what you would expect from Green Bay's offense. Defense, they contained the run fairly well, but they could not cover Mark Andrews. However, the one guy that you do need to cover, they let him, as I mentioned, they let him have a great game. But overall, an ugly win is still a win, and Green Bay improves to 11-3 and clinches the NFC North. The next game to go over is the Green Bay Packers taking on the Cleveland Browns in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. In this game, the Packers defeated the Cleveland Browns 24 to 22. In this game, the Green Bay Packers defense sacked Baker Mayfield 5 times, and they also forced 4 interceptions to secure the W. Also in this game, Aaron Rodgers surpassed Brett Favre for the franchise passing touchdowns record. For Aaron Rodgers, he completed 24 passes, throwing the ball 34 times, so 24 for 34. Only had 202 yards, but he did throw 3 touchdowns. All of those touchdowns came after Baker Mayfield threw an interception, so the Green Bay Packers were able to capitalize on those turnovers. Aaron Jones was a leading rusher, had 12 carries for 66 yards, and Devonta Adams had a pretty good solid game. 10 receptions for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. Defensive stats I have for this game: Rashaan Gary had 3 tackles, he had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and he had 3 QB hits. Um, I've said it before and I'll say it again: Rashaan Gary, I think this has been his breakout year. I think he is an up and coming star for the Packers defense. And then Rasul Douglas, one of, I think, the greatest free agent acquisitions in recent Packers history. Um, he had 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, and 5 tackles. Chandon Sullivan and Darnell Savage each had 1 interception, so the 2 from Rasul Douglas and then 1 from each of those guys totals the 4 interceptions from Baker Mayfield. For Cleveland, Baker Mayfield went 21 for 36, had 222 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then, of course, those 4 interceptions I had mentioned. Nick Chubb was the leading rusher, 17 carries, 126 yards for him, 1 touchdown. He also caught the ball 3 times for 58 yards. And then he was tied with Rashard Higgins for the leading receiver for Cleveland. He had 5 receptions and 58 yards. My notes for this game: Green Bay Packers took advantage of Baker Mayfield's mishaps to get Aaron Rodgers to get win number 12 on number 12's record-breaking day. Next game we have to go over is the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Green Bay, a game which I was there in attendance. I was able to witness the Packers defeat the Vikings 37 to 10, partly due to the Minnesota Vikings not having Kirk Cousins. He was out with COVID-19 that week. Probably wouldn't have mattered if Kirk Cousins would have started, but it might have been a little bit closer, a little bit more entertaining of a game. With the win, the Packers clinched the top seed in the NFC. For Aaron Rodgers, he threw the ball 38 times, completing 29 passes, had 288 yards, and threw for 2 touchdowns, kind of making his case and solidifying his case for MVP, which would be back-to-back. He won it last year, and he's looking like a pretty solid case to win it this year as well. Aaron Jones was a leading rusher. He had 8 carries for 76 yards, and A.J. Dillon got 14 carries for 63 yards and had 2 touchdowns. Excuse me. Devonta Adams had 11 receptions, 136 yards, and had caught 1 touchdown. In this game, Devonta Adams broke his own single-season receptions record, which he previously set last year. I believe it's up to like 118 after this game. Don't quote me on that exact number, but he broke his own franchise record for receptions in the regular season. For Minnesota, because Kirk Cousins was out, Sean Mannion, a rookie, got the start. He threw the ball 36 times, completing 22 passes, had 189 yards, and threw for 1 touchdown. He was also the leading rusher for Minnesota as well. He had 2 carries for 14 yards. Dalvin Cook only had 13 rush yards. Green Bay Packers defense did a great job containing the run. And also, I mean, Sean Mannion throwing the ball, they did a good job containing the pass as well. Justin Jefferson, their star receiver, caught the ball 6 times for only 58 yards. My notes for this game, the Packers pretty much won this game right after kickoff. I mean, the Packers won all 60 minutes. They never trailed. So, I mean, it was kind of boring because it wasn't like a neck and neck game, but it was also really fun to be there. Lambeau Field is, I mean, it's one of the best stadiums in the NFL, even if it was so cold. Yeah, I think it was one of the coldest games in Packers history. It was forecasted to be about 0 degrees with like a negative 10 or so wind chill. It wasn't too bad. It was about 10 degrees above, and then I would say the wind chill probably around 0. So yeah, my toes got a little cold, but I was able to layer up and we got through it. So the Packers clinched the 1 seed, and then they will be getting some star players back for the last game of the season and going into the playoffs. And then in the final game of the season, since the Packers clinched the top seed, it was pretty much a meaningless game. Most starters sat the second half. Aaron Jones didn't even play this game. But in this meaningless game, the Detroit Lions beat the Green Bay Packers 37-30, which, I mean, for sitting the starters in the second half, a little bit closer than I think most fans would have expected. Aaron Rodgers played the first half. In that half, he threw the ball 18 times, completing 14 passes, threw for 138 yards, and threw for 2 touchdowns. And then in the second half, Jordan Love was able to get some playing time. He went 10 of 17, 134 yards. He threw 1 touchdown, but he also did throw 2 interceptions. A.J. Dillon got the start at running back in place of Aaron Jones. He carried the ball 14 times for 63 yards. And then Patrick Taylor, he got most of the carries in the second half, I should say. He carried the ball 11 times for 53 yards, and he scored his first career touchdown in that game as well. Allen Lazard was a leading receiver. He had 5 receptions for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Josiah DeGuara had 3 receptions for 66 yards, and he caught 1 touchdown. I believe it was a 62-yarder from Jordan Love. And then Devonta Adams, he got 6 receptions for 55 yards. And then in this game, he set the franchise record for receiving yards in a season previously held by Jordy Nelson that he set in the 2014 season. So with that broken record, Devonta Adams now owns the receptions, reception yards, and reception touchdown records for a single season. And then here, the records are 123 receptions in this year in 2021, 1,553 yards 2021, and then the reception touchdown record he set last year was 18 touchdowns in 2020. I mean, and my note here is, as much as I, as a fan, love Donald Driver and Jordy Nelson, and older fans will probably mention Sterling Sharp and Antonio Freeman and all those other star receivers the Packers have had. out of the three that I've seen play personally between Driver, Nelson, and Adams, I think at this point you have to say that Devonta Adams is, if he's not the best, he's one of the best receivers that the Packers have had in their franchise history. For Detroit, Jared Goff threw the ball 30 times for 21, threw the ball 30 times, completing 21 passes, had 238 yards, and threw for 2 touchdowns. Jamal Williams, former Green Bay Packers running back, he carried the ball 13 times for 43 yards. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is the younger brother of Packers receiver Equanimeous St. Brown, he's kind of had a breakout year for the Lions. He caught the ball 8 times for 109 yards and 1 touchdown. I think he will be one of their leading receivers going forward for Detroit. Wish him nothing but the best. And then overall notes for the game. David Bakhtiari did come back and play in the first half. He had 27 snaps. Glad to have him back. He looked pretty good. Just get him back, get him conditioned, and it'll be nice to have him back for the playoffs this time around. And then, like I said, it was a meaningless game. It was nice to see Detroit to get a win just because they've kind of been a poverty franchise for, basically my whole life. And I'm 21 years old. For Green Bay is Zadarius Smith, Billy Turner, and Jair Alexander. They should be back for the playoffs. I know Jair Alexander and Billy Turner and Bakhtiari, they all came back to practice, and I believe Zadarius Smith came back to practice this past week after the Detroit game. And then to wrap it up, Packers get to relax for a week, this bye week with the playoffs starting today. I believe there's 2 games today. I believe it's the Vegas Raiders in Cincinnati, and I am not sure of the other one. I'll have to double check on that. But for Green Bay, it's good to have a week off. Aaron Rodgers was quoted as saying that his fractured pinky toe should be 100% ready to go for the playoffs. And, us as Packer fans, we get to sit back, watch a week of football, get to watch Wild Card Weekend, and we'll be back for the divisional round. And I will see you all then.